Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Corporate Access. On today's show, we're looking at how MultiChoice is supporting the development of entrepreneurs here in Africa. According to the African Development Bank, 22% of Africa's working age population are starting businesses. This is the highest entrepreneurship rate in the world. Now, through the Africa Accelerator program, which is in its second phase, MultiChoice hopes to support even more African hustlers, as it were, play a meaningful role in growing the continent and creating jobs. Let's take a look at how the technology group is doing just that.
When Africa does something, we do it well, and Africans know and understand the value of storytelling. Through international funding, the MultiChoice Accelerator program is designed to help small and medium-sized businesses grow and ultimately lead these business owners onto an international platform to pitch to global investors. This program targets startups in the technology sectors of health tech, agri-tech, fintech, edutech, the circular economy, and creative industries. The program sees public and private sector partners in each country nominate businesses or entrepreneurs for the program, who from there get taught to shape their story for international investors, essentially to become pitch ready.
For more details on the program and exactly how it works, I'm joined by Jacqueline Woso, the Managing Director of MultiChoice Tanzania. We also have two of the participants on the current program to share their experience with us so far. That's Lebogang Diale, the co-founder and executive director of Grades Match, who joins me in studio, as well as Bwanganji Boa, the co-founder and CEO of Mighty Finance. To all of you, good afternoon. And Jacqueline, I'd like to begin with you because I am told that this is the second round of this particular program. So take us back to the genesis, as it were. How did it come to be and why exactly did it come to be?
A very good afternoon to Fifi and the MultiChoice Africa Accelerator attendees. There's Wanganji as well as Lebogang. I can see them there. And thank you very much. Yes, I would like to start off with the MultiChoice Innovation Fund. Actually, the Innovation Fund was started up by MultiChoice in year 2012. And the main intention was actually to support SMEs and specifically SMEs in the ICT industry. And more of why SMEs, because it is believed that the contribution of SMEs in the African market is very major. And that is why the reason behind these skills and taking up the specific segment of SMEs. And then the other reason why MultiChoice has been focusing on the SMEs is also they could see a clear potential because we believe the digital is the future of Africa. And that's the only way where we can embrace through SMEs, which is a much quicker channel. And these are definitely, we know these are very quick movers in the African continent. And that is why eventually MultiChoice came up with the Africa Accelerator program, which was actually founded in year 2021. It's only 3 years old, 2 years old now, but it's doing a lot of success. We had the first cohort in the previous year and again the second cohort in year 2023.
And I suppose just a follow-up question, as you said that the program has been successful so far. This second round with the second cohort, and we're going to meet two of them in just a short while. How has it been different to the first? I mean, I can see that you have expanded it to a whole lot more participants. But just give us some details as to how this one works exactly.
I would say that there was a lot of excitement in the second cohort compared to the first cohort because we had actually from only South Africa participating only as a single economy. In year 2023, we've had 9 countries participating, and I can just mention them quickly. Hope we'll remember all of them. There was South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Zambia, and Angola. So much more countries participating, and of course, myself from Tanzania as the judge in the panel.
Oh, wonderful. So this program essentially has extended to cover most parts of the continent. But let's hear from some of the participants right now, because I've got Lebogang joining me in studio, who has, Jacqueline, been nodding as you mentioned the excitement around this particular program and the second cohort, which you happen to be a part of. So before I find out more about your business, I suppose it is a question around how this program has been for you so far. Exactly what have you had to do? What has your experience of the Accelerator program been?
So my experience was quite interesting. So we were, in a sense, not actually looking to be part of the program when we first started, but we got called by the team from Galelo to say, guys, give it a shot. It actually will be worth your while. And I'm happy we listened, because it's definitely been a very exciting experience from the lessons learned with the C3 team, the Ayoko team from EOH as well, around how to, think about framing your business, how to present your business to investors, being grilled as well, properly baked by the C3 team in terms of how we present our case to international investors. Those insights were really helpful for us to just be more prepared for that next level and that initial pitch in Johannesburg and obviously the final pitch in Dubai. So the entire experience is, I'm very happy with it so far. And the lessons learned so far, and the connections, actually, that's probably the most critical part. Because now you get a link across the continent with many different people to share your business, realize that actually my business has a relevance within other countries, and how you can then collaborate with those different partners to create that opportunity for you.
All right. I mean, connections, I'm told that networking and connections are absolutely vital in getting going as a business and even growing. But let's then take a step back to find out more about Grades Match. So you are in one of the sectors that MultiChoice has identified as being a sector for the future, ed tech. So tell us exactly about your business, what kind of problems that you are solving for in the sector.
Sure. So broadly speaking, what we say we do is that we provide a technology that helps, that enables the journey from education to economic opportunity. What does that mean? So generally when a student is in high school, the journey they have to follow is that they first have to get career guidance. So through our platform, they get career guidance in their high school phase, starting as early as grade 9, all the way to about matric. In matric, they need to apply to the various higher learning institutions. So we assist them in applying to the various higher learning institutions such that they stand the best chance of admission given the competition and some of the complexities that come with applying. Then our platform, then as they've been applied for, it starts aggregating where you're going to get the best chance of admission, which pathways have accepted you, and then once you get accepted, we actually help you as you transition to that institution. So if you need laptops, textbooks, res, all of that, we help with that next step and actually support you through that university journey to ultimately graduate, and when you graduate, then you start working. So we actually cover that entire journey, and essentially our customers are the students, the parents, and actually corporates who come in as corporate businesses looking to assist students from that standpoint. And the core kind of underlying theme is that everyone's thinking, how do I optimize my return on investment for education? Because it's quite a bit of money, right? Sure. And you want to make sure that for whatever it is I'm investing, I'm getting the best I can possibly get out of it. And I'm as prepared as possible for this bright new world that we're into now.
Sure. Okay, we'll get into the dynamics in more detail in just a short while. But Vanganji, to bring you in, ma'am, I mean, you are operating in a space that we've seen so many players come in, but I suppose it's because there's just so much to do, and that is finance and improving access to finance, and specifically for women. Tell us about Mighty Finance, your business that you co-founded and you're CEO of, but also your experience of being part of the MultiChoice Accelerator program.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here with you on this program. So I am CEO and founder of Mighty Finance Solution, and we offer small business loans to women-owned and women-led businesses. And really, it's just been an exciting phase, I think, for myself and for the business. And being on this particular platform, it has really helped me to think and not to teach me what to think, but also exposed me to 29 other amazing startups across the continent and just unlocked so many opportunities that lie ahead for expansion for us.
All right, okay. And Lebogang was talking about the fact that exciting so far. There was a grilling also in the program, and in terms of pitching to international investors and the like, a lot of lessons and takeaways that he walked away from. Just your takeaways so far.
Yes, so we have been exposed really to different sources of capital but then also the interactions that we had among the other entrepreneurs have given us more insights into other markets. And also we have a team or pool of mentors that we can fall back on. And, we're now alumni of the C3 who are offering us the bootcamp. And from there, we continue to get more support in building our solutions and scaling for growth as well.
All right, and we'll talk to you about growth in just a short while also. Jacqueline, just to bring it back to you, because there was a mention of other partners that are also involved in this program, EOH being one of them. Just talk to us about all the partners and exactly how they fit in.
Thank you, Fifi. It's interesting that the partners were coming into the Africa Accelerator program, and they were actually partnering with MultiChoice in different avenues. We have Galelo Africa, as well as C3. C3 means companies creating change. And actually, these two major partners were with us throughout the process. We were also with them in the panel of judges. And what the key role which they were having in that process was actually even taking through the entrepreneurs or the SME owners on how to even actually pitch into their business so that they can get funds from the global investors, because actually succeeding to get funds from the investors, you cannot just present 1 or 2, 3 slides and then say that you're successful. No, it can't be easy, because here you're asking for amounts ranging from minimum of $500,000 up to $10 million, depending on how you're going to actually pitch to the specific investors. So the issue was actually to say what you can do, what is your passion around, and also the capabilities of your company, because this also means a lot of the capabilities within the company and how they're going to run up. And then in terms of the other partners which MultiChoice also had in this particular initiative, we had ECOWAS Bank, African Development Bank, AFDB, we had Canal Plus, who also are shareholders and players in the pay TV industry. We also had EOH, and we also had Galelo Africa. So a number of partners who actually came through, as well as Newsroom Africa in terms of media coverage. So all these partners were contributing in one way or the other to make sure that this program is a success in the African continent as a whole.
And the participants have both mentioned some of their takeaways so far, some of the things that they've learned so far. But just in your view and in your expectation, how is this program aimed at benefiting the beneficiaries? Just what can they expect?
Definitely, I would say so many benefits. The first thing is that if the program is organized by MultiChoice, the first thing which they have here is the platform for MultiChoice, because MultiChoice is actually known in Africa as the best storyteller in Africa. If you are in the MultiChoice platform, you're talking about viewers more than 21 million automatically will actually get access to your content, get to see what you have, and actually get the linkage opportunities. And then next to that is also the funding which has been provided by the MultiChoice Innovation Fund, which you talked about it earlier. So ideally, in the first cohort, these people were able to gain a total of over 52 million rands. And again, in the second cohort, they are now actually discussing with various investors globally after the pitching which they had their sessions in Dubai in the last 3 weeks. They were actually able to secure a total of $8 million. And as of now, they are now in the discussion of concluding another additional amount of $5 million. So overall, we can see that they're going to gain a lot. And this is actually distributed around the 11 SMEs, which had actually won within the awards, and actually much more which they're going to gain. So there are a lot of benefits. And also on top of that, besides the financial benefits they're going to get, we've also partnered again, as I said, with Newsroom Africa, and also other partnering channels so that they can have wider coverage, and also the exposure which they got in Dubai. That was a physical discussion. They went there to do live pitches. It was not online pitches. So they were actually able to meet more than 28 global investors in Dubai. So there's a lot of benefits, even if they're not going to get the actual funds, but even the linkages itself is a major platform for these SMEs.
No, certainly. But Lebogang and Vangai, I just want to get your take on entrepreneurship on this continent, and especially prior to receiving support from a big player like MultiChoice. A lot of people have said that it's not easy, it's not without its challenges, but of course it's also not without its opportunities. So if we take a step back to a grades match prior to being placed on this program, what was your experience as an entrepreneur?
Entrepreneurship has been very hard. So it's an interesting sacrifice. So one person described it as jumping out of a plane and kind of trying to assemble it whilst dropping down to make sure that you don't, die before you get to the bottom.
Sure.
Because that's how complex it can be. So you can have, in a single day, high of all highs. Oh, we've just signed the biggest deal. And a low of lows that, oh no, this client's also dropped out. So it's quite a challenging space, and one needs to be highly resilient to, endure the journey. But the key thing is that if you have a really clear vision with also a big market which you're trying to serve, then over time, essentially by pursuing that, you'll get closer and closer to achieving it. And also having like a strong team behind you. So for me, like we're really blessed to have a really strong team behind us, which has helped us go through a number of these valleys and these troughs to achieve great outcomes and great milestones. And that translates to more clients and helps you to kind of scale the business as you go along. But one thing which is really a challenge in Africa is funding. And actually having the chats in Dubai with some of the investors that side, one of the things that they said is a challenge for them to investing in African companies that they don't understand the landscape. So they get the problem, they sort of see what you're trying to say and what you're trying to solve for, but they don't understand the landscape, don't understand the dynamics, don't understand how is this really a big issue. If I'm coming from a more developed environment, how is this a big issue? It's like, wow, a simple thing like career guidance can be a massive issue, but an issue can also be a massive opportunity. So how do we meet each other on that perspective to then say, well, can you invest into us so we can build this thing out and create value holistically, not just commercially, but actually society-wise, create an impact in that sense.
Sure. Bwanganji, your take, I mean, the experience in Zambia, it's so interesting. We're talking about a challenge of funding, and you're in the business of trying to solve for that challenge with the customers and clients that you provide loans for, or loans to. But in your experience of getting access to the funds to get going as a business yourself, prior to getting the likes of MultiChoice to essentially hold your hand on your journey going forward, what was your experience like when you were going at it alone?
So my experience as a small business, a female-led business, it's been very hard. I think like Lebo has talked about the landscape. We really also don't have much investors that are coming from Africa understanding the ecosystem to be able to support small businesses such as mine. And then I have experienced the problem of actually looking for capital to be able to run or grow my business. So you'll find that, yes, people may argue that there is capital around, you have the banks or commercial lenders, but then it's about also terms. How favorable are they for them to really invest in a business such as mine and let it grow and thrive? So that has been a huge barrier among a few others. But of course, access to capital really becomes the number one issue that we're trying to solve as well.
All right. Jacqueline, the various partners that are part of this program, the various investors in which some of the participants got to pitch to over in Dubai, as you mentioned, I mean, what have they said, or what has the experience been on understanding the African landscape? I mean, both Lebogang and Bwangai talking about the lack of full understanding from the investment community of businesses in Africa and what it means to do business in Africa, and perhaps that lack of understanding contributing to the lack of flows coming our way, investment flows coming our way as quickly as they should. What has the experience of some of the international investors and partners who are part of this program been on information, and what are they saying about it?
Thank you, Fifi. I would say that they were very excited to understand more information about how the African SMEs and startups are coming up, because this is the whole new generation coming up with very new and unique different kinds of business and enterprises in the African continent. And one thing for sure, which has actually been a learning lesson, even to us judges, because during the session, we actually acknowledged as judges that we're also learning from the SMEs. So what the key learnings which actually came up from the investors was that actually the SMEs are actually still a very, very major component of business in the African continent. because here we're talking about SMEs making up a total of 90% of the private sector in the African economies. And also they provide an estimated 80% of jobs in the African continent. So when you talk about SMEs, we are talking of a very major segment in the African communities, which is not likable or any form of representative with any of the markets in Europe or Africa or the other developed nations. So this was a very unique feature. And then the other thing which was also observed is that these people are actually trying to push the economic growth of the African continent through creativity, because here what we saw is that most of the projects, we had 29 SMEs pitching to us in South Africa, and most of them were actually hinged within 5 key sectors, which are the major economic drivers in Africa. We had players from fintech, edutech, health tech, agri-tech, as well as consumer tech, which is actually comprised of the key African economy drivers. So that's the key point, which was actually a learning point to the investors.
All right. I suppose just sticking to the point of access to finance. I mean, we have a private player right now that is trying to plug that gap. And just your view on whether there is a role, a better role that governments on the continent and specifically here in South Africa can play in improving the access to finance, whether there is a better role that private sector players in themselves can also play. And you know, based on your experience of pitching, what do you think you are in the position of doing better now to get the listening ear, or more of a listening ear, to access finance that perhaps you didn't know prior to being on this program?
Sure. So I'll start with just what government or private sector can do. So government can just make it easier for businesses to be able to just conduct business. I think Wangaji can touch on the Zambian example. Zambia's done really well in terms of creating a startup act which enables startups to get funding far easier, especially from outside, which becomes quite helpful, especially for foreign direct investment coming to the country. Locally, it's still quite hard to get, you know, big funding or big ticket sizes, especially at the seed, so like your early stage or early revenue type businesses. It's a bit easier as you go further up, so you're a bit more established, making bigger revenues. But the challenges of getting the access to the funding is still a big, big, big issue. And the key thing is that, you know, you need to have the risk appetite to allow businesses to actually fail, and then allow the entrepreneurs to learn the lessons, to build themselves up again and start a new business. Because that's essentially how it works,
sure,
right? So when you look at examples like Silicon Valley, they're happy, they're more excited to figure out, okay, you failed, so what happened? What did you learn? Okay, cool. What new business did you figure out you want to start now? Whereas here, if you fail, it's like, we can't invest in this person ever again because they lost our money or whatever it may be, right? But this is within a business and you're trying to prove a situation, trying to prove a case.
Sure.
And that's a complexity which, you know, we as a country, as governments, can be a little bit more friendly toward how we make it a bit easier for companies to start. Then your second question was, just to remember that one?
Just what you've learned, because
sure,
sometimes perhaps it's not having the right pitch that to get you turned down in terms of access to funding. And the point about risk that you do make, sometimes it is because you're too risky, and sometimes failure is a bit too expensive for the banks specifically to be able to afford.
Sure. So in terms of lessons learned, I think the big one is how to present your case well. So when you're in the business, you're so in the detail that you don't always figure out, how do I communicate this beautiful stuff we're doing in the most simplistic way? Because when investors are, you know, short on time, and they need to just get to the point as quickly as possible, right? So our pitches were essentially 5 minutes. Initially, they were about 3 minutes as well. So you're supposed to get all this data, all your business information out within 3 minutes, which is like, okay, what do I need to tell you to convince you, right? So you need to be very succinct and very clear on the particular points that make your business shine. And they gave like a nice structure to make that possible. And that actually just becomes much easier for whether you're pitching to the investors, whether you're pitching to customers, whether you're pitching to an individual parent. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing over and over again. And it's about polishing it to the T. And then if you're convinced, like another part of how you invest is that the investor's actually backing you, right? They're not necessarily backing the business independently, because the founders are the ones who are going to take this business forward. If the business needs to change direction, you're backing the founders to say they'll take it in the right direction. So you need to also come across as a trustworthy and reliable individual who can take this thing forward to the next level and help, obviously, everyone create some value.
Sure, sure. Wanganji, just as we wrap up, I mean, I'm going to try and wrap up 2 questions in one here. taking it from what Lebogang has said, yes, I mean, businesses perhaps should have a little bit more appetite to risk, but in the African context, perhaps we don't want to deal with the costs or as many costs of failure. Our currencies are not in the positions to be able to afford as many costs of failure. And so just draw from your experience of what you've learned in this program that could make lenders in future more amenable to hearing and betting on SMEs similar to you in your space.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So maybe it would be in two strands. Number one would be, getting your story right. Like I was talking about the partners who came on to MultiChoice to help with letting us know how best we can tell our story and being very succinct with that, as Lebo had also mentioned. I think the other thing is the type of capital that we actually employ in our businesses. That is very cardinal. And as we're talking about, the kind of industries that, say, MultiChoice chose to invest in terms of startups, these are very new as well on the landscape in terms of fintech, say, for instance, in Zambia. So when you're trying to navigate the regulation, you're trying to navigate how you're going to go about deploying your services, all those things are going to come with their own risks, their own opportunities, their own challenges, failures, and successes. So really, if you're going to use financing to be able to do that at a very early stage, this is where angel investment comes in and points us back again to the fact that if we have capital, even within the continent, that is able to promote our own local businesses, that would be very helpful, because then the opportunity for you to fail, to pivot and pick it up as well and succeed then is very much increased. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. Jacqueline, wrap it up for us. I mean, this is the second program that we're talking about, following a first program that you said was very successful. What about program number 3? Is that in the pipeline for MultiChoice?
Yes, definitely, Fifi. Cohort number 3 is already on the pipeline, and I would say stay tuned to hear more about that, because we still believe there's still a lot of potential. If we talk about the Africa population, we are talking about 1.4 trillion people as in March 2023. So the scope is wide and the sky is the limit for the SME entrepreneurs.
All right. Okay. I've got 1 extra minute, and I'm going to share it between both Lebogang and Vongai. Cohort number 3 is happening. It's in the pipeline. And I know you mentioned being succinct in your presentation and the importance of presenting you, because the investor is backing you, not just the business. But any other tips to cohort number 3 that you'd like to share briefly?
I think when you have your chance with investors, especially when it's your private settings, take them and have your one-on-one. Make sure you have as much time as possible. Sit next to them, whether it's the dinners which are available, they avail to you, or whether it's just a private sitting at the main events. Just sitting one-on-one with someone helps them trust you as a person. So build those relationships is super key.
Okay, so taking advantage of private moments. Vonganji, any other tips on your part?
Yes, I think for any entrepreneur that's going to embark on this journey, my tip for you would be really tell your story. Africa has got so many problems, and the solutions that are coming up are really bespoke to solve these problems. You will be taught how to tell the story, but tell it as it is. It is your story, your solution for your problem. Tell it as it is.
All right. I suppose on that note is a perfect point to wrap, and I just love the smile in delivering that advice. And I suppose it's tell the story and believe in the story. Tell it with the confidence that it deserves. But that does wrap up today's conversation on the MultiChoice Africa Accelerator program. I'd like to thank our audience for tuning in. I hope that you learned a lot from this special broadcast, which should focus on African entrepreneurship. And I'd also like to thank the guests who joined us. That's Jacqueline Woso, Managing Director for MultiChoice Tanzania. Thank you, ma'am. Lebogang Diale, the co-founder and executive director of Grades Match, who is in studio. Thanks so much, Lebo. As well as Vonganji Boa, the co-founder and CEO of Mighty Finance. Thanks, Vonganji, and until next time to all of you, it is goodbye.